Pushkin Club was the brainchild and the creation of a very remarkable woman called Maria Zornova-Kuhlmann. The concept of Pushkin Club, when it was founded, almost immediately, as far as I remember, after the Khrushchev thaw, though apparently she had been thinking about it even before that, but let us date it more to the Khrushchev thaw, because that was when it became possible for representatives of Russian culture to come out of the Soviet Union, to create a space where the representatives of the old Russian culture could speak to the representatives of the new Russian culture and discover that actually they had an immense amount in common. It was a rather splendid Edwardian house on the corner of Kensington Park Gardens and Ladbroke Grove, where we originally functioned in those early days. A big, rather oddly shaped room. So we had the last vice president of the last Russian Duma, Baron Alexander Felixovich Meyendorff, Baron Meyendorff. We had the great Karsavina, Tamara Karsavina, the dancer, who by then was quite crippled with arthritis, but who was still able to come to the club and to give a wonderful talk about dancing in the Mariinsky, and where even with the arthritis that she suffered from, the moment she lifted an arm, we sat enchanted by the magic that somehow she had brought out from the past. The extraordinary speech by Alexei Surkov, who was very much an official figure. He was not a great writer, but he was a remarkable person, who was the secretary of the Writers' Union. There was Twardowski, who, in answering a speech by Surkov, read a remarkable poem, which in those days was an extraordinary and perhaps even rather brave act on his behalf, on his part, and that was to read a poem about the conscience of a writer. We never failed to have full house. Admittedly, the room wasn't all that large. It would probably seat at most 50 plus, but it was a very well-heeled, sophisticated, cultured, what we would now call an upper-middle-class British audience, who were interested because they knew something about Russian. They had, after all, read some Russian literature. After all, remember that Tolstoy was very popular in England, Turgenev was quite well known. People often think that Dostoevsky was, but Dostoevsky was really rather unpalatable raw meat for a well-heeled British reader. On the whole, it was the great trio of Turgenev, Tolstoy and Chekhov, but that they were familiar with. And there was the added novelty of some old Russian names and new Soviet, after all. The Soviet Union had been our allies during the war, and there was an interest in what was it really like, what were their writers like. So it was a kind of well-bred curiosity that brought them.